Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Coming up in our Cannabis Culture segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames, today we're featuring the awesome Geoff Trotter, Chief Growth Officer and co-founder at Regennabis. Geoff is an advocate of both social and environmental issues facing us today. And at Regennabis, they are firmly in business of sustainability and very passionate about assisting cross-sector collaboration in the cannabis space. They're at the forefront of positioning the cannabis industry as a game changer for humanity by advocating for the normalization, legalization, and regulation of cannabis. They align their work with the UN Sustainable Development Goals as they see the cannabis industry well positioned to deliver long-term economic, social, and environmental impact, a sentiment that I very much echo. They go to market in three connected and integrated verticals: technology, advisory, and media. Today, we're chatting about properly positioning cannabis beyond prohibitionist thinking and focusing on how a fully legalized and regulated cannabis plant can deliver economic, social, and environmental impacts, of course, all while solving real world issues. We'll also chat about the current cannabis related legislation moving through the House and what that will entail should it become law. And lastly, we're going to discuss how cannabis companies have an amazing opportunity to show a new group of consumers that they are truly great brands, an acronym for good, regenerative, equitable, accountable, and transparent via corporate transparency, and how using the frameworks of ESG and sustainability will help build the trust factor with consumers and with each other. Welcoming now to the show is the amazing Geoff Trotter. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you so much. Wow, what an introduction.
Of course, let's jump right into it. That's what we do here. Number one show trending on education on WOR. So, Geoff, how do we properly position cannabis beyond prohibitionist thinking, and how can a fully legalized cannabis industry change the playing field?
Great question. I think from our perspective, we just need to release the plant, leave the plant, let it be. And I think if we can take the plant, cannabis, in all of its forms, whether it's marijuana, whether it's hemp, and then take into consideration where the plant could then be used, whether it's in recreational adult use space, whether it's in medical cannabis, or whether it's in what's sometimes referred to as industrial cannabis or hemp, then we have a huge opportunity to move then into a legalized, normalized, regulated space, and then just let governments, corporations, civil society, media, investors, and the legal world have at it. And I think at that point, we fundamentally believe that we could see the plant could deliver significant upside for humanity.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, if you look at where the statistics are headed, it's definitely in the right direction. According to the United Nations, 159 million people around the world are currently using marijuana. To put things into perspective, that's more than 4% of the planet's population. And the global cannabis market is projected to grow from 29 billion in 2021 to 198 billion by the year 2028. Just in 7 years, that's a huge, huge leap. And in the US, according to Leafy's job report, you have about 500,000 full-time equivalent jobs that are now supported by legal cannabis as of last January. So the industry is creating an average of 280 new jobs per day as of last year. Definitely great statistics, headed into the right direction. All right, let's shift a little bit. Let's chat legislation. So as we closed out 2022, Geoff, we saw the federal government pass its first standalone cannabis law, the Medical Marijuana and Cannabidiol Research Expansion Act, with, of course, more possible federal reform on the horizon. So let's chat Safe Banking Act, and let's get into this. The Safe and Fair Enforcement Banking Act would permit banks to do business with plant-touching cannabis companies. And of course, now we know that cannabis remains federally illegal, and traditional financial institutions do not facilitate cannabis-related transactions. So for banks that want to work with state-regulated cannabis-related businesses, the Safe Banking Act would be game changer. Talk to me about this.
Well, it would be a game changer. And I think it's right to point out, from our perspective, we look at banking with a lowercase b and an uppercase b. With a lowercase b, we're talking about the banking services that could be provided to cannabis businesses in the same way as banking services are provided to existing businesses, whether it's helping with payroll, helping with point of sale activities, etc. The other banking, the one with a capital B, is where we really then look at all other financial services, including banking. So that's investment services, it's the capital markets, etc. Now, it largely depends on which version of the Safe Banking Act passes, but if it's an advanced, like what sometimes is referred to as Safe Plus, then there is an opportunity for already legal cannabis businesses that are operating here in the United States, but trading in Canada because they're not allowed to trade on, say, NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, but they could uplist. That would bring an incredible amount of liquidity into this marketplace. And the cannabis industry right now, even though it's adding a number of jobs per day, it really needs this liquidity. And so the Safe Banking Act is not only going to help the cannabis space, but it will also help the financial services space too. And we know that there are enough players that want to step into this industry.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, SAFE would fight crime. It would promote diversity and boost the economy by making, to your point, more traditional capital sources available. And cannabis companies, if you think of it, are frequently constrained by being forced to conduct business in cash and the risk that goes along with that, such as the risk of violent crime, right? But by providing safe access to banks, I can't agree more. SAFE would decrease on-hand cash at cannabis facilities and in turn reduce violent crime in the cannabis industry. And lastly, and this is the major point, it would boost the economy. So yes, what you're saying is spot on. The United States cannabis market is projected to grow to as much as $46 billion by the year 2025. And getting that money into the traditional monetary system would provide greater access to capital from traditional sources and potentially open investors coming into the market. So this is game changers. We definitely need the SAFE Act. All right, so let's chat Medical Marijuana and Cannabidiol Research Expansion Act. This recently enacted federal law endeavors to facilitate cannabis research. Why is this important, Geoff?
Well, it's very important because right now cannabis is a Schedule I drug, which basically puts it in the same bin as other drugs like heroin and cocaine, which clearly it is not. In fact, to put it bluntly, cannabis isn't a drug, it's a medicine. And so what this particular act is going to do is going to look to either reschedule and move it down to Schedule 3 or Schedule 4, possibly 5. There's even a foundation called Schedule 6 that's actually looking to move it to that particular schedule. The alternative is it just is descheduled, which means it becomes legal. And that is something that this particular act is pursuing. Where that's going to end up, who knows? But there's a very good sense within the community that it will, at the very least, be rescheduled to 3 or 4.
And that's extremely important. I mean, when you look at it, if you look at it in hindsight, outside of the research, it really does force the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, to make quicker decisions on, first of all, applications to research cannabis, or on number 2, manufacture it to supply the researchers. Because further, if you look at it, what this law is going to provide on top of descheduling it and declassifying, and taking cannabis outside of that context. But the law is going to give research applicants different ways to have their research protocols reviewed, allowed, and ultimately approved by the DEA. So this law also authorizes certain entities to manufacture, distribute, dispense, or possess cannabis and cannabidiol, CBD, for medical research with the goal of developing cannabis-derived, commercially available, FDA-approved drugs. And really, that's where we want to go. We want FDA approved drugs because we do want the FDA to jump in here, because to your point, and you said it is not a drug. It helps you. This is not a negative drug off the streets. You can't classify it like that. This is medicine for the soul for many. All right, so let's go back to, we have about 3 minutes left here. Let's talk about great brands. I know that that's something at the forefront of everything that you guys are focusing on. GREAT is an acronym for good, regenerative, equitable, accountable, and transparent. Now, you claim that cannabis companies have an amazing opportunity to show a new group of consumers that they are truly great brands. Okay. And you're going to do this via corporate transparency and using the frameworks of ESG and sustainability to help build the trust factor with consumers. Now, I know that your technology play, the soon to be RegTech platform is launching, and that's going to help cannabis companies measure, monitor, and report on their ESG strategies. Now, guys, when we say ESG, we're talking about very specific stuff: environmental, social, and governance. And that's a new trending acronym these days. Talk to me about this notion.
Yeah, from our perspective, there are many companies, not only cannabis companies, but let's focus on the cannabis space. They really are beginning to understand more and more the urgency around their ESG performance, their environmental social governance performance, which in essence is a performance metric that enables external parties like investors to see how that cannabis company is mitigating risks that are externally, created, like greenhouse gas emissions. So there's environmental issues, social issues like diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we all know in the cannabis space, given the history of the plant, war on drugs, etc., that diversity, equity, and inclusion is critical. Same with governance in all businesses. We need better governance, the way boardrooms behave, etc. We believe that if we can demonstrate and help cannabis companies capture that information and share it, then their access to capital will improve because they're demonstrating they're mitigating risks. Then they can move into the realms of sustainability and tell their story about how their products and services are impacting beneficially the planet, people, as well as the economy. And so we're helping them do that. At the same time, what this also does, it brings trust into this space. And given, again, the war on drugs and where we are moving now beyond the war on drugs, trust is an essential piece and the fabric of the cannabis space. And we fundamentally believe that given that cannabis companies without federal legalization cannot advertise and market at a product level, they certainly can at a corporate level. And one of the things that we're advocating for is that if they take that notion that actually doing good and making money are not mutually exclusive, okay? Being regenerative, not extractive, not depleting, whether it's of human resources or plant resources. Being equitable, again, understanding that there are equitable business models. How do we ensure that the social equity play in the cannabis space is played out fairly? How do we also make sure that cannabis executives are accountable for their behaviors? And all of this will be manufactured, if you like, through transparency, and that's what the platform will deliver. When you have GREAT, you really do have a great brand. And subsequently, what will happen with Gen Z and folks that look like me, these are important markets for this space, and they want to interact with businesses where they know that these organizations are great brands.
Amazing. And you have something so proprietary right now. I mean, what the work that you do at Regennabis is amazing because your advisory work builds out on a cannabis company's ESG position through the development of what you call this agreed to materiality assessment, in where you build on this positioning by advising on sustainability and branding to help clients create this long-term stakeholder value, which for me, I think is so proprietary. And then your media work is with events through the Regenerative Cannabis Live event series that you hold at the United Nations right here in New York City, as well as your soon to be released hybrid show called Transformational Cannabis, which will be recorded live from the New York Stock Exchange floor. I mean, you definitely have some incredible opportunities ahead of you, Geoff.
Well, thank you. Yeah, look, I mean, there are not enough hours in a day. In fact, my co-founder partner has just moved to Florida. We actually ought to be moving to Mars, where there's more hours in a day.
I couldn't agree more. Well, listen, we are out of time, my friend. Geoff, thank you so much for coming on. What an enlightening, very, very full of details and very educational segment. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Guys, you definitely have to check out Geoff Trotter, Chief Growth Officer and co-founder at Regennabis. That was our Cannabis Culture segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames. Do check out Regennabis on their website at regennabis.com, or you can also head to regenerativecannabislive.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcoming back to our Cannabis Culture segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames. We're talking with Geoff Trotter, Chief Growth Officer and co-founder at Regennabis. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Great to be here again.
Okay, so let's jump into it. In October of 2020 of last year, President Biden released a statement pardoning federal offenses of simple marijuana possession. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the interview. And in addition, he asked the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Attorney General to review cannabis's classification as a Schedule I drug, which is the highest level of classification under federal law, although not without drawbacks. Rescheduling to Schedule II would be an overall victory to the medical marijuana industry, of course, like other things are that we're waiting for, but it would likely allow medical cannabis to be grown in one state and sold in another. What do you say to that? And is the declassification to a level 2 enough?
No, quite simply, it's not enough. We just need to move beyond this folly, frankly, and this nonsense. I use that term. It is a medicine. It is a plant that, prior to prohibition was being used widely. If we look at indigenous populations, they've been using this plant in a very responsible way for millennia. And it just makes no sense. And so I think we need to just move to descheduling, frankly. Yes, it would be a victory to move to, say, Schedule 3 or 4, but it's not enough. And frankly, let's look also beyond these shores. Here in the United States, as we're sort of discussing and thinking about all of this, other nations out there are beginning to move ahead. Look at Germany, one of the biggest economies in Europe now. And south of here, we're looking at Colombia. Brazil have just opened up their ideas around medical cannabis. So we can see that there is an increasing openness towards this. I just think the US government should move straight ahead and just go straight to descheduling and be done with it.
I couldn't agree more. Well, the good news is that a much hyped letter from California cannabis regulators to the state attorney general recently indicated that the Golden State, Geoff, is teeing up interstate trade in marijuana. The state's Department of Cannabis Control, the DCC, sent an 8-page letter to the Office of California Attorney General Rob Bonta, laying out the legal argument for how California could sidestep federal obstacles if state officials decide to greenlight exports of cannabis across state lines. And the fact that California, Geoff, the 5th largest economy on the planet and the largest cannabis economy in the world, is taking the bull by the horns and saying, hey, we want to make progress here to get consumers what they want by growing plants in the right environmental place is a major indicator on where we are headed. So I think outside of declassifying it, we're making a lot of traction, but we need so much more support.
Absolutely. At any one time currently in the United States, there's roughly 750 cannabis-related bills going through different state legislatures or through the federal government in Congress. That's remarkable that many bills. So when we see pockets of this, what we say forward thinking, as we're now seeing here in California, that's to be applauded. Some of the other bills are not as sort of open and in terms of the framing of what they're looking to do. But we're seeing some significant shifts here, and that's a great thing. But you're absolutely right, because if you look at the fact that currently you cannot cross state lines with a manufactured product in the cannabis space, I mean, it just beggars belief. And how is it then these organizations, companies, big or small, how are they going to really sort of think about growth when they're restricted in such a way? It makes no sense. And certainly for me, as you could probably tell, I'm not from around here. I just don't understand. It sort of strikes me as almost like the disunited state of America rather than the United States of America.
We're so disunited. We are, in fact, disunited at this point right now. And, as much as I'm a proud patriot, I'm an American, it doesn't feel too good. But listen, given that public support for reform remains at an all-time high, according to, recent research, we see this all the time. We do expect, legalization and reform at the state level to continue, of course, aggressively in this year ahead. And the increasing research on the use of cannabis and its medicinal properties, of course, Geoff, we know this has led to its increased use to treat various chronic conditions. And like you said, it is a medicine, not a drug. I mean, they are found to be effective in treating chronic pain and nausea due to chemotherapy. Furthermore, the constant rise in the legitimization of medical cannabis has resulted in the growth of the market. And for instance, if you look at the FDA, they have approved the use of cannabis-derived drug products such as Epidiolex and Sesamet for treating seizures and chemotherapy-induced side effects, respectively. So if you're really looking at the research done, how can this plant grow if we're shackled, if the industry is shackled, when there's so much good being done? And this is the most important part. In December of 2 years ago, of 2020, the U.S. House of Reps passed the legislation to remove cannabis from the Controlled Substance Act of 1970. That was a major milestone. But I mean, think about it. We're talking about cannabis as a controlled substance. Of course, it should have been removed. That's 1970. That law was, fossils made that law from the year before Christ, so to speak. Like, get with the program, people.
Yeah, I mean, look, like that particular year, or those years, 70, 71, that's when Nixon put into effect in June the war on drugs, which, as we know, was not a war on drugs, it was a war on people.
It was a war on people.
Black, brown, indigenous, underrepresented, disenfranchised people. And it continues. And that's what we need to be looking more at. And you mentioned earlier expungements. So in those states now where we are seeing folks being released from jails for nonviolent cannabis-related offenses, I mean, hallelujah, that's fantastic. No one should be in jail in the United States now on some possession charge. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense at all. But it's not enough to expunge the sentence. You still then need to go further, because even though you're expunging, what you're not doing is enabling that person to go back into this industry, which is now developing at pace. So you're denying these former prisoners jailed for a nonsense offense, you're denying them a fundamental human right to actually go and work. So we need to not even rest on our laurels of, yay, expungement. It's not enough.
Yeah.
You really need to go beyond that.
Couldn't agree more. Well, we are out of time. You and I could talk about this all day, every day, and we will be. For now, we're going to leave it at that. But Geoff, thank you so much for coming on. It was truly a pleasure chatting with you.
Great. Thank you ever so much.
Absolutely. Guys, you definitely have to check out Regennabis. Check out Geoff Trotter, Chief Growth Officer and co-founder at Regennabis. That was our Cannabis Culture segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames. Head to Regennabis.com and definitely do check out regenerativeCannabisLive.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.